Chapter 10 Raag Darbari. The Changamal Vidyalaya Intermediate College was founded to inspire the youthful citizens of nation with great ideals and by providing them with the best education to make them the means of the country's uplift. Reading the constitution and regulations of the college printed on shiny orange paper, a heart soiled with the dirt of reality would be naturally cleansed and purified, just as it would be after reading the chapter in Indian Constitution dealing with fundamental rights. The college was established in the national interest, and so naturally it had its fair share of factionalism, if nothing else. You couldn't say it had an abundant amount of factionalism, but still, considering the process of it had made in a short time span, it seemed as if a good job had been done. In only a couple of years, its factionalism had begun to appear much more solid than in the surrounding colleges. In fact, some instances it had even begun to compete with All India. Vedaji held sway over the managing committee, but Ramadendra Khamkheri had by this time already established a faction of his own. To do this required serious endeavor. For a long time, his faction had considered only of himself, then he attracted a few members of the committee to his side. Now, after a great deal of hard work, he had managed to split the college employees into two groups. But there was still a lot to be done. The principal was entirely reliant on Vedaji, but Khanna Master was not dependent on Ramadin's group on the same extent. He still had to be won over. The boys had not yet been divided into rival groups on the basis of their sympathy of the two factions. They did swear and fight among themselves, but these activities had not found a suitable direction. The fight did not further the aim of the factionalism, but were carried out for personal reasons, and in this way the power of the boys' hooliganism was dissipated in individual self-interest and was not employed for the collective good of the nation. The factionalism had still a great deal of work to do on this front too. It's true to say that, apart from Vedaji, the college factionalism lacked experience. They had neither maturity nor brilliance. On the rare occasion in the year when they managed to pull off a master stroke, it sends waves as far as the town, and they sometimes did pull off a trick which astounded even the greatest natural-born politician. The previous year, Ramadin had caught Vedaji out with a trick like that. He hadn't succeeded, but his strategy was discussed for miles around. That was mentioned in the newspaper. One politician was so affected by the news that he came galloping from the town to the college just to pat both beside on the back. He was a senior factionalist and lived mostly in the capital. For the last 40 years, he had devoted 24 hours a day to factionalism and was himself factionalist. Factionalism personified. He operated at the All India level, and his statements were published on front page every day. They revealed a unique confluence of patriotism and factionalism. Once he visited a college, people were satisfied in the knowledge that even if the college were to close down, there would at least be no end to factionalism. The question is, why factionalism? And this is like asking why rain falls from heaven, or why you should tell the truth. What is material and what is God? In fact, this is a socio-psychological, almost a philosophical question. According to Vedanta, to which Vedaji always referred as a synonym of Ayurveda, factionalism is another name of the ultimate condition of realization that the self, I, and the divine, thou, are one. In factionalism, every I, see every thou, and every thou see every I, in a position better than himself. They all want to capture each other's position. I want to annihilate thou, and thou to annihilate I, so that I become thou and thou becomes I. This is a wonderful interpretation of Veda, which has been given by Vedaji, where I and thou, you and me, are merging together. I and thou, they are trying to stand apart and maintain the individuality, but the ultimate purpose of the Vedanta philosophy is to become one. So, मैं था तो तू नहीं और तू है तो मैं नहीं. This is what? To becoming one. Vedanta is a part of our tradition, and because the meaning of factionalism can be drawn from Vedanta. Factionalism is also our tradition. Both are our cultural heritage. After gaining independence from the British, we have discovered many of our traditions. That is why we travel to Europe by air, but first get an astrologer to draw upon our program. We take the blessings of saints to rid themselves of foreign exchange and income tax problem. We encourage fistulas by drinking Scotch whiskey, and then to go to yoga ashram for treatment through deep breathing and by contracting our stomach. In exactly the same way, we accept the democracy as we have learned from Western education, and to run it, we rely on our tradition of factionalism. In our history, whether in peace or war, from royal palaces to village threshing floors, we have always had a splendid tradition of turning I into thou and thou into I by factionalism. We had forgotten the tradition for a while during the Raj, when we had the bother of running the British out of the country. After we won freedom, we encouraged it along with many of our other traditions. Now we are increasing factionalism through arguments and abuse, kicks and shoe beatings, literature and art, and all other means. This is our cultural faith. This is the achievements of country which gave birth to Vedanta. So this paragraph is full of satire, where Shilal Shukla is making a wonderful irony. For example, I repeat some lines which will make things more clear. And what is the satire? What is the irony? Let us see. That we travel to Europe by air, but first get an astrologer to draw upon our program. We take blessings of saints to rid ourselves of foreign exchange and income tax problem. We encourage fistula by drinking Scotch whiskey, and then go to yoga ashram for treatment through deep breathing and by contracting our stomach. So these things easily explain that we are full of orthodoxy. So we travel by air, which is the most advanced invention of science. We go and travel by air, but still we are so traditional that we go to Pandit Ji and ask before that whether which day and what time I have to travel by the air. And then foreign exchange is a ultimate mode of economic exchange and a business. So it also doesn't apply for the theory which is being said that if you are crossing the sea, then your religion, your dharma will be vanished. So we do not bother to travel abroad because it is significant for our economic benefits, our education, science and progress, but still come back and then ask Panditji to how to get out of problem, or we take the blessings of sense to rid ourselves of foreign exchange and income tax problem. And by fistula, which is a common problem generally, it is also known as bagandar in the Hindi advertisements which are written on the walls, and that we encourage fistula by drinking Scotch whiskey, then go to yoga ashram for treating through deep breathe and by contracting our stomach. So this paragraph, page number 76 of English translation by Zillian Wright of Raag Darbari, is full of satire. And this is the third paragraph on page number 76. You come to the page and read it again. Apart from the fundamental causes, another reason for the factionalism in the college was the common belief that something should be keep happening. This whole chapter number 10 is talking about the factionalism. That is the division by ideology, by belief system, by way of functioning, and how do we interpret democracy even. So factionalism is people who believe in a different kind of understanding and belief, and that's how this create the conflict. Apart from these fundamental causes, another reason for the factionalism in the college was the common belief that something should keep happening. In Shivpalganj, there was no cinema, restaurant, coffee house, fights, stabbings, road accidents, fashionable girls, exhibitions, or even public meetings ending in abuse. could people go? Where could people go? What could they see? What would they listen to? Therefore, something must kept happening. 4 days ago, a love letter which a boy had written to a girl had been confiscated in college. The boy had been very clever. When you read the letter, it looks as if it wasn't him approaching the girl, but replying to a letter from her. But this cleverness didn't pay. The boy was reprimanded, beaten and thrown out of the college. Then, on the assurance of the boy's father that the boy wouldn't fall in love again, and on his promise that he would donate 50,000 bricks for the new college block, his son was readmitted to the college. Whatever impact this had lasted no more than 4 days, and people were again faced with the same eternal question, what next? So this paragraph this is almost a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, paragraph number 8, chapter 10, paragraph number 8, chapter 10. Here you will find that a love letter has been written to a boy by a boy to the girl, and the trick is that generally the love letter is written when the boy is writing a letter to a girl. He is actually writing from his side that I believe, I feel this about you, I want this from you. These are the things which a boy writes. But this boy had been very clever, and he is writing a letter as if a girl has already written him a letter and he is replying. So this is what the trick or a very extraordinary smartness played by the boy, but finally the trick didn't work. I am proceeding towards the next paragraph. In this mood, people's eye had turned to Principal and Vedaji. Vedaji was sitting contentedly in his usual place with his turban tied in the style worn by the great socialist leader Madan Mohan Malviya. However, the principal looked as if he had shinned up an electricity pylon without any assistant, as was screaming out to some person in the far distance, help, help, they want to do me mischief. His face too betrayed suspicion, since like every Indian who is stuck to his chair of office, he feared having it pulled out from under him. People had guessed his weakness, and he began to bait him, Vedaji too. From their side, they were prepared to attack as the best means of defense. One day, about the stand, someone told Khanna Master that every college had a principal and a vice principal. Khanna Master taught history and was the most senior lecturer to the college. Taken by this side, he came to Vedaji and told him that he should be made vice principal. Vedaji nodded and replied that this was a noble thought, and that young man should always have fresh ideas, and that he welcomed every fresh idea. But this was a question that should be looked into the managing committee, and if the question arose its next meeting, it would be considered appropriately. It didn't occur to Khanna Master that the managing committee never did have its next meeting. He wrote an application for the immediate appointment as vice principal and gave it to the principal with an appeal that it should be presented at the next meeting of the managing committee. The principal was astounded by Khanna Master's action. He went and asked Vedaji if he had advised Khanna Master to submit the application. Vedaji gave a 3-word reply: he is still young. For several days after this, the principal stated to everyone whom he met on the streets of Sivpalganj the biological fact that no one knows what's got into people nowadays. He described Khanna Master's action with saying like, good God on his lips and dagger under his arm. The wolf, this is what in Hindi, this proverb is very popular, मुंह में राम बगल में छुरी, मुंह में राम बगल में छुरी. This is again in the middle of the chapter 10, and this proverb is being used, God on his lips and dagger under his arm. मुंह में राम बगल में छुरी, God on his lips and dagger under his arm. The wolf we nurtured ourselves is now buying at our house, although wolves don't pay. It's a stab in the back, and even the frog has caught a cold. So stab in the back, I mean पीठ में छुरा भोंकना, okay, stab in the back, पीठ में छुरा भोंकना. और even the frog has a cold, जैसे कि मेंढक को भी जुकाम हो गया, because frogs are most of the often they are in the water, almost whole of their life they live in water. So this is a kind of satire, joke है ये, और मजाक है, irony. On one occasion, so earlier paragraphs are dedicated to, initially it was on the factionalism, and now we are coming to the, we talked about Khanna Master and his rebellious attitude. On one occasion, standing at the crossroad, he said symbolically, one day a horse was being shot. Seeing it, a frog suddenly developed the desire to have its feet shoot too. With great difficulty is persuaded the blacksmith to do it, but when the man hammered in the first nail just a little, it was too much for it, and bothered frog died on the spot. So this is again a story which is being told, और ये कहानी ये है कि we all know that there is a horseshoe, घोड़े की नाल, घोड़े के पैरों में एक लोहे की कुछ एक मतलब हाफ सर्कल टाइप कुछ उसको फिक्स किया जाता है ताकि घोड़े के पैर ना खिसे, बिकॉज इट्स मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम इट इज रनिंग ऑन द रोड फॉर द दिस ट्रैवल पर्पस. और उसको व्हाट जनरली पीपल डू टू अवॉइड दैट इज. सो दिस स्टोरी इज वेरी पॉपुलर एंड लिसन इट अगेन. On one occasion, standing at the crossroad, he said symbolically, one day a horse was being shot. Seeing it, a frog suddenly developed a desire to have its feet too shot too. With great difficulty, it persuaded the blacksmith to do, but when the man hammered in the first nail just a little, it was too much for it, and bothered. Brother frog died on the spot. ये एक कहानी है जिसमें बड़ी सिंपल सी कहानी है जिसमें कि एक मेंढक और फ्रॉग जो घोड़े को देखकर उसकी तरह बनने की कोशिश करता है. और घोड़े का आपने जनरली देखा होगा, यू कैन फाइंड इट ऑन गूगल और यूट्यूब ऑल्सो, कि उनका पैरों के नीचे नाल लगाई जाती, घोड़े की नाल. और जनरली घोड़े की नाल को काफ़ी इंडियन उसमें ऑस्पिशियस भी मानते हैं लोग. अपने घर के दरवाजे पे इसको ठोक के रखते, पुरानी घोड़े की नाल. और घोड़े की नाल में क्या होता है, घोड़े के पैरों में एक हाफ सर्कल के रूप में लोहे का एक छोटा सा वो उसको ठोक देते हैं, मतलब उसको फिक्स कर देते हैं उसकी पैर के साथ. तो जब घोड़ा सड़क पे दौड़ता है तो उसके पैर नहीं घिसते, रबिंग से उसके पैर घिस जाते हैं. और उससे वो आयरन, और आपने कई बार देखा होगा जब व्हेन द हॉर्स इज रनिंग ऑन द रोड तो एक आवाज़ आती है, वो उन्हीं उसी लोहे की आवाज़ आती है जो उसके पैरों के नीचे लगा होता है. उसको बोलते हैं हॉर्स शू, और हिंदी में बोलते हैं घोड़े की नाल. तो मेंढक को भी लगा कि उसके पैरों के नीचे भी घोड़े की नाल होनी, मतलब वैसा ही आयरन का कुछ प्रोटेक्शन होना चाहिए. और वो ब्लैक स्मिथ के पास जाके बोलता है कि मेरे पैरों में ऐसी नाल लगा दो जैसी तुम फ्रॉक को लगाते हो. और ब्लैक स्मिथ पहले तो राज़ी नहीं हुआ, क्योंकि वो बड़ा पेनफुल प्रोसेस होता है, उसमें आयरन का पोर्शन स्किन में जाता है. बट क्योंकि मेंढक बहुत ज़िद में था तो उसने लगा. जैसे ही उसने एक कील ठोकी, कील उसके पैर में गाड़ी और मेंढक मर गया. तो ये एक सटायरिकल है, कहानी है, और किस तरह की जो हम है नहीं वो बनना चाहते हैं, तो अल्टीमेटली द रिजल्ट इज डेथ. तो ये आपका चैप्टर 10 में ऑलमोस्ट मिड ऑफ द चैप्टर में ये स्टोरी है, आप इसको पढ़ें ज़रूर. So I again read, on one occasion standing at the crossroad, he said symbolically, he meant मतलब frog. Symbolically, one day a horse was being shot. Seeing it, a frog suddenly developed the desire to have. और ये वर्ड है SHOD, shod. ये शॉर्ट वर्ड बना है शू से, SHOE. तो शू से शॉर्ट बना है SHOD. Shod means the process in which that iron part is being fixed in the foot of the horse. तो ये शॉर्ट SHOD, शॉर्ट मतलब घोड़े की नाल ठोकना, और उस प्रोसेस को शॉर्ट बोलते हैं. और ये वर्ड बना है शू से, SHOE. तो तो ई हटा के डी लगा है, short. So one occasion, standing at the crossroad, he said symbolically, one day a horse was being shot. Seeing it, a frog suddenly developed the desire to have its feet shot too. और मेंढक को भी लगा कि उसके पैरों में भी नाल लगनी चाहिए, ऐसा आयरन का कोई प्रोटेक्शन लगना चाहिए. शॉट, SHOT, शॉट मतलब घोड़े की नाल ठोकना. With great difficulty it persuaded the blacksmith to do it, but when the man hammered in the first nail just a little, it was too much for it, and brother frog died on the spot. Behind this fable there was a fear. The man who wanted to be vice principal today will want to be a principal tomorrow. To achieve this, he will try to get the member of the managing committee on the side. He will create a faction among the men masters. He will incite the boys to fight. On top of this, he will send in complaints. He is a rascal now, and a rascal he will remain. तो ये जो सटायर है ये खन्ना मास्टर को लेके किया है प्रिंसिपल ने, कि जिस तरह से एक मेंढक घोड़ा बनने की कोशिश कर रहा था, उसी तरह से any of the school master will try to become a vice principal tomorrow and then principal after that. तो और उसके बाद फिर वो क्या करेगा, बच्चों में फैक्शनलिज्म करेगा, लड़ाई करवाएगा, ग्रुप डिवाइड करेगा, टीचर्स को अपने अपने ग्रुप में बांटेगा. तो ये एक तरह का it will be a very serious conflicting circumstances for the college administration. और उसके बाद ये बहुत मुश्किल होगा कॉलेज के लिए कॉलेज को रन कर पाना. तो that's why this is a story which is very symbolic or which is very futuristic also. Principal want to say something what is going to happen if they are not controlling Khanna master. Khanna master representing the rebellious side of the story. A false principal can't truth overpower. There is never any scent from a paper flower. So these two lines are there. A false principles cannot truth overpower. There is never any scent from a paper flower. So Ramadin Bikram Khervi said this couplet at the top of the letter he wrote to Vedji, the purport of which was the meeting of the managing committee. अब यहाँ पे एक कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है रमादीन भीखम खेड़वी और वैद्य जी के बीच में. रमादीन भीखम खेड़वी इज सपोर्टिंग द ऑपोजिशन ग्रुप ऑफ वैद्य जी, और उसके लिए वो फैक्शनलिज्म क्रिएट कर रहे हैं उसमें कॉलेज में. और बिकॉज ही इज अ पार्ट ऑफ द कमिटी, तो वो कमिटी के मेंबर हैं, कॉलेज कमिटी के मेंबर हैं, कॉलेज मैनेजमेंट कमिटी के मेंबर हैं. तो वो लेटर लिखते हैं वैद्य जी को, और उस लेटर के ऊपर 2 लाइन्स हैं. A false principal can't truth overpower. There is never any scent from a paper flower. So the managing committee, which had not been held for the last 3 years, should be held in 10 days' time. And an annual general meeting of the college, which had not been held since the college had been established, should be considered at the committee meeting. He also referred to the appointment of vice principal as one of the subject for discussion. तो ये भीखम खेड़वी डिमांड कर रहे हैं कि जो 3 साल में मैनेजिंग कमेटी की मीटिंग नहीं हुई है उसको अगले 10 दिन में कराया जाए, और एनुअल जनरल मीटिंग जो कि जब से कॉलेज बना है तब से नहीं हुई है उसको जल्द से जल्द कराया जाए. और बिकॉज देयर इज नो वाइस प्रिंसिपल इन द कॉलेज, तो वो वाइस प्रिंसिपल के मैटर को भी डिस्कस किया जाए. दिस इज अ वेरी सिग्निफिकेंट administrative discussion which is going on. When the principal put this letter into his pocket and left Vedji's house, it felt as though the letter was burning holes in his pocket. At the college gate, he met Rupan Babu, stopped him and asked, "Have you seen Khanna is sitting there holding on a Ramadin's coat tail? He fancies himself as a vice principal. Once a frog saw that a horse was being shot, so it too." तो प्रिंसिपल उनसे रूपन बाबू से मिलते हैं कॉलेज के गेट पे और कहते हैं कि खन्ना मास्टर रमादीन भीखम खेड़वी के साथ चल रहा है, और उसकी कॉलर पकड़ के उसके मतलब कंधे पे हाथ रख के चल रहा है. रमादीन भीखम खेड़वी इज हेल्पिंग खन्ना मास्टर टू बिकम अ प्रिंसिपल. और ये तो वही बात हो गई जैसे कि एक मेंढक सोचता है कि मैं भी घोड़ा बन जाऊं और घोड़े की तरह नाल ठुकवा लूं. Rupan Babu was leaving the college and was in a hurry. He said, "I know everyone here knows the frog story. But I will tell you one thing straight. I have no sympathy for Khanna, but I think it's necessary to have a vice principal here. When you are not here, all the masters fight like cats and dogs. I can't describe the hooliganism that goes on in the master's common room. The same hey, te, pepe, hey, te, pepe. It's a complete bedlam. He became grave and said the authority, Principal Sahib, I believe that we should have a vice principal here too. Khanna is the most senior. He should be given the job. It's just the nominal thing. You don't have to increase his salary. तो रूपन बाबू ने यहाँ खन्ना मास्टर को सपोर्ट किया. He's supporting Khanna master and he's saying that when Principal Sahib, you are not in the college staff room become hooliganism. It's a ground for hooliganism, and the masters of the college, they are doing hey, te, pepe all the time, and there is no discipline. Children are fighting, teachers are fighting, and there is no discipline, nothing in the college. So Khanna master को principal बनाया जाए, और we are not talking that you should increase his salary, but just for a nominal sake that he can manage administration. The principal's heart began to beat so violently that it was in the danger of leaping out into his lungs. He said, never make the mistake of saying that, Rupan Babu. This Khanna Vanna will begin to show that you are on his side. This is a Shupalganj. You should think twice before saying such things, even in jest. तो प्रिंसिपल साहब ने रूपन बाबू से कहा कि आप इस तरह हड़बड़ी और जल्दी में कुछ भी ना कहें, और अगर लोगों को पता चलता है कि यू आर सपोर्टिंग खन्ना मास्टर, दे विल बिकम मोर स्ट्रॉन्ग. और वाई रूपन बाबू इज सो पॉपुलर और सो पावरफुल? बिकॉज रूपन बाबू वैद्य जी के छोटे बेटे हैं, और वैद्य जी इस कॉलेज को मैनेज करते हैं, और प्रिंसिपल इस कॉलेज को मैनेज करने में उनको पूरा सपोर्ट करते हैं. I'm telling the truth anyway. We will see what comes of it, said Rupan Babu as he walked away. The principal went quickly to his room. It was cold there, but he took off his coat. A calendar from the shop was supplied educational aids hungry directly in front of his nose. On the opposite wall, it showed a film actress with an almost transparent sari wrapped around her naked body, advancing like a huge laddu towards a man. The man had a long, bushy beard. He held on one hand over his eyes, and from the expression of his face, it looked as if he had indigestion from the eating too many laddus. This was Menaka and Vishwamitra. The principal looked at them for a while, and then, instead of ringing his bell, he shouted loudly for the chaprasi and instructed him to summon Khanna master. The chaprasi replied in a discreet tone, he has gone off towards the field. Malaviya ji is with him. The principal wearily pushed away the pen box on the desk in front of him. The pen box too had been given away free as a sample by the Education Emporium, and the way the principal had pushed it seems to indicate that this year they would be no goods brought from that shop for the college. But this was not the principal's real intention. He just wanted to let the chaprasi know that at this precious moment he was not prepared to listen to his confidential report. He snapped, I'm telling you to call Khanna master here this minute. Reasonably clean dhoti. He wore wooden sandals and had a tilak mark on his forehead. He remarked peacefully, I'm on my way. I will call Khanna here. Why are you getting so angry? The principal grounded his teeth and gazed through the narrow eyes at a piece of tin on his desk. It had been published on the red rose has been painted too. Beneath it was a cleaner show that the date and month. A liquor company had produced this cleaner in memory of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, who always wore a rose in his buttonhole, and had distributed it freely to all the sundry in the belief that whenever the cleaner went, men would never forget the ideals of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, or the company's brand of liquor. But at this moment, the calendar had no effect on the principal. Panditji's red road gave him no peace, nor was he compelled to close his eyes in contemplation of forming a glass of beer. He continued to grind his teeth. Suddenly, at the chaprasi's wooden sandals were crossing the veranda, I said, Ramadin will get him made principal, the skunk.